But also welcome you to Udicci Studios. Udicci Studios is actually a social media production studio that we have built down in the underground at Blue Bar and Grill in Rochester, New York. Now there's a big reason that we've done that. We are a social marketing company and we are actually involved with economic development. We're working in our local community to help small businesses get launched, and we're kind of going from there. So again, just waiting on...
We say no audio yet, so hold on one second.
Wait, we're hearing no audio yet, and we should make sure that you guys have the audio. And I guess all of that before I got done was...
They can't see the video.
They can't see video. Any audio?
No video, no audio.
All right, we're going to go down.
The screen should have video.
What's that?
Top of the screen should have video, correct?
They should have just had video a second ago. They should have the live stream going.
All right, hold on one second.
I have
right back.
audio coming in, and I have it displaying perfect streaming on my side.
So, hold on a second, I'm getting a live
Did they get a different, do they have a different link that they should have followed?
I sent them right to our invitation.
Okay.
Hold on 1 minute, let me, I'm not seeing...
Three.
1 minute.
Live now.
Okay.
There we go.
So, we just dropped off. That's,
Who's that? Dennis?
I think so, yeah.
We're still going. Okay.
Okay, I think we're... We can see video of that.
All right. Well, thank you. Good thing, computer glitches, streaming glitches happen all the time. A few minutes ago, just before we got logged in, again, I just want to make sure that our audio is coming through. You may hear a little echo. And while we are getting that confirmation, I do want to thank you for inviting us back to JIFX and also welcome you to Udicci Studios. We are actually in the underground, if you will, a basement of a local bar and grill called Blue Bar and Grill, and we have created a social media production studio down here because we work with economic development with a number of local charities and credit unions. We'll talk just a bit about that later on. And right now, I'm just doing a little bit of filler to make sure that we have good audio before we go. All right, and we do want to get on with business. Again, thank you very much for inviting us back to JIFX. We were with you guys out, I think it was last August at Camp Roberts. That was really quite a fun event for us to attend. Really helped us to learn quite a bit, some changes that we needed to make in our software, but it was greatly helpful. Again, thank you for having us back. I would like to introduce you to some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about data mediation and the symbol AND, which we'll get to in just a little bit. We're going to be talking about social solutions, and we're going to help define what those social solutions are and help better explain what Udicci does and how we go about doing it. We'll talk about an organization called Fixel. They're a startup company that we are working with, and we'll kind of create a scenario around a fictitious character that we call Joe Dent. He is a paint and dent repair specialist. Then we're going to get into a scenario with maybe FEMA and how that may work into the audience that we're talking to. And then we're going to bring it all back around, how everybody connects back together. Then we're going to have a pseudo commercial break. Now I know really we don't do commercial breaks per se, but what we're going to do is actually kind of talk about how we go about building a social solution and give you a little bit of an insight into what we're doing there. So again, thank you for bringing us back to JIFX, and we'd like to kind of welcome you. Last time we were at Camp Roberts, it was really eye-opening. We really got to enjoy the ride through the back country. You should be seeing some of the pictures that we were able to take out there last time. It was, for us, an experience we'll never forget. Being exposed to some of the technology and the people, and really realizing the solutions that are out there and where the impact that it can have on our society and how we may be able to play a role. We sat next to an engineer who had some really cool print technology, e-print technology that really just, every time he opened his mouth, he made us realize how little it is we actually know. Very humbling, grateful to be out there. We did get to watch some of the drone flights, and we're looking forward to coming back and hopefully seeing the dog fights, and I'm not really sure if they were joking about that or otherwise.
1 second.
But
They have people coming in from another briefing that they'd like you to pause for a minute.
Pause.
Okay, we will pause.
We will pause. Oh, yeah.
We have folks still coming in from another brief, so.
All right. And I guess at this point, what we could do is, since we're pausing right now, is we can actually introduce you to Mike behind the camera over here. Mike is our producer. I'm just going to kind of fill, if you will, while people come in. Welcome to those of you just coming in. Nice to see you.
Hey, everybody.
Mike behind the camera. Tim is actually on our moderator. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. He's over there. And I guess we're just going to be waiting for the go-ahead on there.
You're on camera 3.
I'm on camera 3. There's a reason that we do kind of all that we're doing right now. We're actually trying to work with understanding the different streaming technologies. We'll talk to that in a little bit. How we can use data, how far we can go with embedding data into those streams. So a lot of this for us is very experimental in nature. So we are very grateful that you guys are allowing us to experiment with you, which I understand is what JIFX is all about. Again, just kind of waiting for a few people to come in. And
She said, thanks. She's going to let us know when we're ready to go.
no problem at all. We greatly appreciate it. So, hopefully you guys are having a good time out there. What is today? Tuesday. I know that last time we were there, it took a little while to get really ramped up.
No snow.
What's that?
No snow up there.
Yeah, no snow. I'm sure that you guys are having a little bit better weather than we're having here, but we're used to it. Snow isn't quite up to the back window anymore, so we're good. All right, I'm looking over here and I see everybody. Okay. I'll tell you what, if you'll give me just 1 second, we'll be right back.
It was foggy this morning, but it's not open. It was foggy there.
It was fine the last time we were there. The jackrabbit stuff came out, so that's kind of fun. All right. Thank you. So it's kind of like us walking out of the room and coming back in for just a moment. We do have Lisa. Oh, by the way, if you guys have any questions, I believe Lisa's in the front of the room. She might be in the back of the room. She could be the side of the room. We're really not quite sure, but she's actually moderating right now for you guys. At the end, we're going to talk and go to a little bit more hangout orientation, so we'll explain that. All right. And welcome.
In the future, we will have some pleasant music for you guys.
We could work on that. Maybe we could play a little Jesse Sprinkle. Maybe we could put a little Jesse on right now and hold that background music for us.
She's in the front of the room.
She's in the front of the room. Hi, how you doing? So I'm curious. Let's see. Are we up on the screen? So now I'm like, hi Lisa, how's it going?
One person is on their way. He's an evaluator.
An evaluator. Okay, now I'm nervous.
Oh, she wants you to dance.
Dance? Jive talking. Okay. So we can have some fun with this. All right, so the evaluator is on his way. I understand, or she is on her way.
We are on 2 large TV screens in front of the room.
Nice. Wonder if we,
Audio coming out of the TV directly.
I wonder if we could work on having them be mirror images, so that way I could turn and talk to myself. See, because right now I'm turned away from them completely, but if I turn this way and talk to themselves, we need to get like stereo cameras that take opposing pictures and we can send the stream independently. Yeah, I just created more work.
Too hard.
I just created more work for Tim.
Question while we're waiting?
Ah, we can take some questions.
No, do we have logistical questions for her?
Logistical? No, I think we're okay right now. I mean, we're just, this is kind of, I mean, for us last time, it was really just trying to learn more about what JIFX was, how we could interact, and you know, this time being able to really stream is another way we can help and that we can participate and learn more about our own technology, and you know, hopefully introduce it to others, and maybe the next time if we can get back out to JIFX, have more hands-on while we're there. I appreciate the offer. I thought Mike said I'm actually on camera 3. Hi. I don't want to actually just do side profiles the whole day long. I just got to know which one I'm on.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready to go? All right, so I'm not exactly sure where we left off. I know we were just kind of talking about our last trip out to JIFX, and indeed that it was very eye-opening, and we talked about a few of the people that we met out there, and that's a piece of what we'll talk about in just a minute. While we were out there last time, we did attempt a very basic test, which was to make Ruby bark. Now, basically what we did was we took data that was put into the Fulcrum app. I'm imagining Fulcrum is probably out there this time, and Fulcrum had one of their apps was wildlife sightings, and we thought that would be a fun one to play with. And what we basically did is we connected with their system, and basically if their system, if somebody saw that if somebody entered squirrel, then on the Udicci platform, on our platform, what we did is we would show a picture of my dog Ruby and play a song of a dog barking. Now, why make Ruby bark? Well, it seems to make sense because after all, I know my dog, and whenever she sees a squirrel in the backyard, she barks. So for me, it just made complete, perfect sense to make Ruby bark. But more importantly, it was actually proof of concept of what we call data mediation, and really what our system is all about. Data mediation is really the connecting of 2 platforms or 2 sets of data and be able to collaborate and act upon that data into a given set of processes, if you will. So again, all we did is we simply did a very simple connection. Upon squirrel being selected, we put up on our side a very simple make Ruby bark. If anything else was selected, we just ignored that process or ignored that input. Because Fulcrum was willing to share that data with us, they were able to connect on the Udicci platform, we were able to make that happen. Now before we move on too far, and I just want to kind of do some housekeeping, if you will. I was asked a couple days ago of us is like why we chose live streaming and what's going on here. Now, a couple of reasons that we chose live stream is that we're actually still playing with a couple different technologies in-house. Live stream for us and for the marketplace that we're serving was the easiest one to use. Now what that means right now is that there's about a 10 to 12 second delay between what I'm saying and what it is you're hearing. So that adds a bit of complexity into having a person-to-person conversation. So we are using a Hangout up front. If you have any questions, please just shout them out, whatever Lisa wants you to do, however she said to do it. She'll ask the questions, we can stop, we can try to answer them, but just know that we have about a 10 to 12 second delay. We also are going to have the Hangout afterwards so that we can discuss or answer any of your other questions. Now, when we talked about using live stream, what we're actually looking at is the comparison between RTMP, which some of you may be familiar with. It's a protocol for real-time messaging, and it allows us to feed a stream to a server and broadcast that stream out to many. We're now beginning to explore something called WebRTC, which is being created by Google, which is more of a peer-to-peer sharing and it provides that capability without any latency. And now we need to figure out whether that broadcast works. So for us, this is also part of experimentation and growth, if you will. The important piece there is the peer-to-peer, because it begins to speak to what it is that Udicci does. Udicci manages relationships. Udicci was able, when we came out to JIFX last time, Udicci was able to relate two independent entities and temporarily bring them together for a common purpose. Making Ruby bark was an example of what we call data mediation, and begins to show the value of what we call and. Now, and is simply the and sign, and it is what we do. And is sharing what is needed when it is needed. Now, another very important lesson we learned out at JIFX was that you never know who it is that you're talking to. We learned that we could be talking to any number of people with various experience, various expertise, and we never knew the role that they held. So within each conversation, we had to be very aware of who it was we were talking to. And to that point, we don't really know who's in the audience today. So we've kind of prepared the presentation toward multiple groups. And we want to let you know there are going to be times that we're going to be doing some very simplistic definitions. And please don't think that we're trying to talk down or anything else like that. It's simply that we're not quite sure who's in the audience, and we want to make this as clear as possible. And we're trying to make this presentation to the largest, broadest audience as we can. So with that, we'd like to begin with a couple definitions. And hopefully Mike will be able to get these definitions up on the screen for you so we can go through those together. The first one that we're going to be looking for is social. Now, some of these may seem obvious. And are we good with that, Mike?
Yep.
We're good with okay. So social. Now, when we say social, when Udicci says social, because what we say is that Udicci delivers social solutions. What we mean by social. First and foremost, social to us describes the relationships that exist within humanity, society, economy, community, and home. Secondly, it's a means through interacting on an online platform. And finally, it's a gathering for a common purpose to provide relationship, often for enjoyment. Now you understand, like a social club, if you will, is very much the reason that we built a social media production house in the downstairs of a restaurant. We want to make ourselves available and the information that we have to humanity and to the citizens of our community. Now, an important and simplistic definition is solution. When we say solution, we mean it's a set of actions and the corresponding information which seeks to fulfill a predetermined need. Basically, if there's a problem and we can help identify the processes that begin to solve that problem or actually solve that problem, we want to be able to deliver that, and that is the solution. And we actually are working on trying to solve what we feel is a very big problem in our society, and that's really why we founded our company. Media. When we use the term media, we mean any form of information, entertainment, or data that is available online. So media to us is not simply video or audio, it is really any form of data. And then we're going to speak to something that's unique to Udicci, and it's called engagements. And engagement is a fundamental step of a process that, when acted upon, will lead toward the realization of the purpose of a social solution. Engagements within a social solution are the process, if you will, that solve the need, and engagements in Udicci are created from a set of related or structured data. Now, that last thing that I just talked about, structured data, is Udicci is actually built upon a platform which helps create structure for data, and we're able to bring it together when necessary so that we can mediate it between people, but also it's built so it can be more fluid in nature. So when we say social solution, what we mean is a collection of media and activities which collaborate to solve a social need. So when we say Udicci delivers social solutions, that's exactly what we mean. We try to create solutions that work both online and offline together to provide people with the information and the data necessary to collaborate to solve a problem for the common good, if you will. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about Fixel. I mentioned Fixel earlier, and now Fixel is a startup company with Udicci, and they help provide a very good example of what it is we do and how it is that we come together. So Fixel is a startup company with whom we are working. Now, they help coordinate response of auto repair technicians, of dent repair technicians, when major hailstorms cause significant damage to automobiles. Now, just to put this scenario in place, if you can imagine a major hailstorm coming through, say, Dallas, Texas. That hailstorm will damage tens of thousands of cars just on auto dealer lots alone. New cars, used cars, and all of those cars need to be repaired. Now it would be, you can never really build a business model around the concept of having a dent repair, a hail dent repair in Dallas, Texas, because that may only happen once a decade, once every 5 years. So you'd be waiting for it, and then by the time it happened, there's no way a single person or a single repair technician could handle the volume of work. So in their world, there are independent dent repair technicians that are kind of scattered all throughout the country. And when hail happens, they are coordinated through one of about 3 companies in the country to respond. And those companies help coordinate between body shops and auto dealers and whatnot, and they coordinate the response of these independent auto technicians. And that's what we did with Fixel. We actually created a social solution to help coordinate that response online. Now these are independent entities who do not necessarily ever know that the other exists per se. The auto dealer never really has a relationship with the paint and dent repair until he or she needs that that relationship. So on the screen you can kind of just start to see the social solution, if you will, for Fixel. You'll see that there's 3 classifications inside of there. There's the PDR technician, the auto hail repair, and then auto track. Now auto track is something interesting because it actually just helps track where a car is on the lot for a dealership. And why we point these 3 things out is the whole idea of the independent nature of a Udicci solution. Only when necessary does the PDR tech and the auto dealer come together to solve a problem. Never will the PDR technician really necessarily care about where the car is on the lot, but the dealership needs to know where it is on the lot if it's going in for repairs or engine work or a test drive. So each of these are their own solution that come together as needed, and they are provided by Fixel into this marketplace. So repair technicians engage with Fixel. A social solution for Fixel includes a set of engagements that allow an auto repair technician to search for jobs that were posted by auto dealers who need repair when there is a hail need that goes on with that. And we talked earlier about Joe Dent. Joe Dent is our fictitious auto repair technician, and he is engaged with Fixel on the Udicci platform. Now how this begins is simply, you might see a quick up on the screen, is he's invited to engage with Fixel. He's given an invite, he comes back from that invite, and he'll see simply a page that says, hey, here's your username, your password. Very simple. Once that is done, Joe Dent is given a Udicci profile, and Joe can then begin interacting with Fixel and other solutions as needed that are on the Udicci platform, and we'll give you an idea about what that means, if you will, when we give our little commercial break later on. Fixel is a social solution. Joe Dent is engaged with Fixel, so let's see kind of how this relates to you in the audience. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Twitter. And I always love this conversation because the conversation for me is really about the hashtag. And for those of you in the audience who watch Saturday Night Live, you can really appreciate the hashtag anything that we do today. It's very rare that you can go anywhere without saying hashtag this word or that word anymore in our society. What was really interesting when Twitter came out is how many people sat there and said, why do we need yet another form of communication? We have email and we have text and we have all these other ways that we communicate. Why? And why only 132 characters? Well, it was really never about the communication. It was always about the hashtag. The hashtag simply allowed us as society to come together under one common word or phrase. People around the world could say hashtag JIFX, and no matter where they are, we could all be talking about JIFX so we could be included in one conversation. By doing so, Twitter created a form of communication that now has a marketplace value of over $35 billion. Being able to actually hashtag and bring people together under a given point of communication has significant value. We're seeing the same kind of situation in geocaching, where on a point in time, on a point on a map at a given time, we can relate information to that, and that has significant value. The problem with these, in many ways, is that they exist in silos. These are, they're great and they bring a community together, but they don't necessarily allow us to immediately collaborate. And we need to be able to find that if we have synergy, if we have reason to work together, we need to find a way of sharing the data that we have for that common purpose. And that's where Udicci steps in with and. Again, our data, our world is filled with these standalone silos of data, if you will, and sharing of data would require continuous development and programming of new connections. Every time you wanted to interact with somebody, every time I wanted to connect with you or you connect with me and then you connect with somebody else, it was a new API. So what we've done with Udicci and is basically created a one-time connection to a platform that basically says you connect one time and we'll allow you to connect to all. So and, like hashtag, requires a one-time API connection. So once you engage with Udicci one time, you kind of connect with all. And we'll connect people, organization, and things. One of our current clients that we're working with actually works in the things market, if you will. Sensors, hardware solutions that have data that have to, get data that goes out from the hardware and data that is returned to it and that must be acted upon. So one of the clients that we're working with now is kind of in that things market, and we're beginning to work toward that direction. Now, and Udicci. There's an important piece about this. And Udicci. A Udicci profile. All right, we got this up on the screen because this is one I was at. A Udicci profile is a client-centric online presence that seeks to provide a single point of control for personal and organizational media distribution and consumption. It's always like a point where I have to take a breath and kind of let that sink in a little bit. I wrote this, I get it, but let's just reread that. A Udicci profile is a client-centric online presence that seeks to provide a single point of control for personal and organizational media distribution and consumption. And is data mediation. Simply said, to mediate is to act between two parties and effect an agreement, a compromise, or a reconciliation. To act as an intermediary between two entities. Data mediation is to effectuate the sharing of data between two or more entities based upon mutual agreements and permissions that we call data provisions. So, and Udicci. Udicci allows people and organizations to socially manage relationships, data relationships, if you will. So if we come back, if you remember Fixel, we talked about Fixel for a little bit. They began a relationship with Joe Dent when they invited him to the Fixel profile using Udicci, Joe Dent and Fixel. And is the data relationship. Mike, I don't know if Mike has this one here up on street, which is FEMA and Fixel data. No. We've kind of just created, and we'll see if Mike can pull this one up. If not, there we go. You'll see up there that we just kind of made up some data that perhaps FEMA might have as a good example. Now, FEMA may have a database of government agencies, maybe points of contact within those government agencies. Those are pretty obvious. Maybe they have access to first responders. Maybe you have a solution that speaks to category of need. When they arrive on scene, they begin categorizing the response needs, and from that they can start coordinating the response. Maybe they have a database of shelter and even maybe emergency financing, maybe through the SBA. On the other side of the formula, we have Fixel. Fixel has all these a database of auto dealers across the country, and they have this solution of lot maintenance and business planning for the auto repair technicians to help them achieve their goals and work more efficiently. Then they have this database of car repair technicians or these dent repair technicians, and then maybe an invoicing solution. Now in that, you'd look at it and go, what's the comparison? Well, maybe it is that at some point, FEMA and Fixel need to come together, and FEMA may arrive on site and say, you know what, we actually do need to have a solution to all of the cars that have damage right now, and if they could create a relationship with Fixel on this one ad hoc basis, on this standalone situation, they could request from Fixel to have access to their car repair technicians. Now, Fixel would have already had the agreements in place with all of their technicians, if you will, their data mediation agreements and data provisioning, and they would have already put in place, If we find opportunity that is relevant to your need, can we share that? And if the car repair techs say yes we can, and FEMA and Fixel come together, then as soon as Fixel says yes to FEMA, they have access to all of that data also. If FEMA has built in an API to Udicci, then FEMA can actually just manage those car repair technicians in their existing solution. They don't have to change the solution as long as they've written their API to connect to it. If they haven't written the API to connect to it, they can use what we call a social solution. All right, so we're going to kind of take a little commercial break here, and again, it's not really a commercial break. We're going to talk about the social solution, but we're going to use an example from our credit union market just to speak to that. So I figure at this point, if you will, I'm just going to wait and see if there's any questions. We'll kind of wait and check that out real quick. Figure this is a good place to stop for a minute. And any hands? Anybody wait?
We have about an 18-second delay.
Everybody good? All right, we'll just wait another couple seconds here because again, we do have that delay that we talk about. And I'm hearing from Tim right now, we're at about 18 seconds on that delay. Probably need to get some of our LTE guys over there.
Hold on, we're getting a response. No questions so far.
Fantastic. Thank you. So we have no questions right now. So again, back to my commercial break. Now again, not really commercial, but you've heard me say that Udicci delivers social solutions. Our primary market that we go into, that we work with, are nonprofit credit unions. I believe all credit unions are nonprofit, but we work with credit unions and local charities to help create economic development scenarios in our community, if you will. One of the important pieces for economic development and for the individual families is really debt relief and trying to help people get out of debt. And what we wanted to do to kind of show what a social solution was we tasked ourselves last week with defining what maybe a debt relief social solution might be. Now, we actually have a very different first solution that we worked into the marketplace, but I wanted to create a social solution to kind of get out there. And what I tasked our team with was a matter of setting up the number of steps that are involved with getting out of debt, debt relief, if you will. And one of the things we talked about was invest in your future. That means to take time to set goals, learn about those goals, and set those goals up. Know what you owe. Make sure that you actually know all of the debt that you have, and then do budget. Create a very simple budgeting system, and then count the cost, if you will, and go back and each week or periodically review your cost, your actual expenses against your projected expenses. Now, there is more to this solution. I'm just trying to get through this, as I said, a quick commercial break. But what I wanted to show you is actually a screenshot of the back end of our system. A little bit, we've looked at the front end, which is our social side, but our system actually has a back end where we create the solutions. So in the back end, what we do is we go through and we create mediators, which are how we begin to mediate data between people. And those mediators basically get structures much like a database table would have. We begin by simply creating a solution, and you should be able to see that up on the screen now. All right, I guess we're just, Mike's telling me we're good. All right, so this is the back end of our system that you're looking at, where we first begin creating a solution. Now, why we've taken the time to do this is because we can't exactly program as needed. And we need to be able to respond quickly to social solutions, so we can't sit down and begin from scratch programming each and every time. However, what we've done is left room for programming to allow for the unique situation. So in this case, we created a debt relief solution in the back end, and we should see the next piece here, which is kind of where we define our mediators. And in each mediator, we simply define the fields that are necessary to do the data collection. We define the type of field that we are, and then we kind of sew them all together under engagement to create social solutions. After the social solution is done, then it will be presented to the public, if you will. So now, Mike, we should be on, if you will, the social solution on the front page. And you'll see that goals are out there. I believe I can't see that from here, but we'll be looking at the goals that are out there. And people can go in and immediately start setting goals for themselves and start creating milestones, and they could start doing their budgeting. So, are you guys, I just want to make sure. Okay, we're good. All right, you can come back on camera here. So basically what we did there is we created a debt relief solution. Now, to give you an idea about this, there was a total of about, I would say, 8 hours of actual work involved in that solution. From beginning, from idea to setting through the processes, from determining the data that was necessary, to actually deploying the solution was about an 8-hour concept, maybe 10 hours that we had total in accomplishing that. And most of that had to do with us trying to figure out the processes, the steps involved. So the actual programming, if you will, was more like 3 hours of going in, setting up the structures, being able to tie them together as a solution, and then deploying those. So again, when we talk about social solutions, it is, yes, very much trying to solve a problem and a need, but also a means of deploying a data solution, a data-driven solution of related data quickly to a given need, and collaboratively by pulling people together as needed when needed. So I'm going to come back now and just kind of talk about Joe Dent, and we may have Joe Dent's his client-centric profile that we talked about up there. You may see a picture about that, and what we foresee a long-term, if you will, the client-centric profile being is really a place where all of a person's social media is housed. Down the road, Joe Dent may actually have his Pandora stations mediated through here. Maybe he's got his Netflix station, so now he can begin searching for any kind of media that he wants, and it searches all of his available media. Joe Dent would obviously have Fixel inside of there, and perhaps he'd have FEMA. Maybe he's got Amazon through there, and obviously Facebook. As well as, in this case, Lexington Federal Credit Union, which is who we developed that relief package for. Because Joe Dent wanted to get out of debt, so we were able to deploy the social solution to Joe Dent as well as to Fixel. And of course, Fixel never has a clue that he's working on his debt relief plan. So that kind of talks about what a social solution is and really what Udicci is. So kind of in review, we introduced data mediation, and we explained how the independent entities can connect one time to Udicci and then share the data as necessary. We went through social solutions, which demonstrated how we can create technology solutions from the data associated with the Udicci profiles. And then we explored an existing solution with Fixel and talked through how people and organizations can come together on an as-needed basis. So again, we do want to thank you for inviting us back to JIFX. One thing we do want to let you know is that we are Udicci, and we are committed to hope. That's our tagline. It's Credito Spes, and we are committed to hope. And if you check us out, you'll find that we actually have a pretty big social solution. We see a major problem in our world, and it's that of child sexual slavery. And we are working to begin. We believe that we have a plan that can help raise awareness as well as the funding to begin taking down that what we call evil. And we're going to target, we're doing it by targeting poverty. So that is our social solution that we've built for ourselves. So again, we are Udicci. We are a social media company on a mission to repurpose capitalism by demonstrating the possibility of putting people before profits and for the good of humanity. So thank you again for inviting us to JIFX. And with that, we will simply open it up to questions. And I will return shortly. If you have questions, please holler them out.
She's typing now.
All right.
Who have you collaborated with?
Our primary collaboration right now, the little one out at JIFX, Fixel was obviously one of them that we've collaborated with. The credit union solution is one particularly, and that is a local credit union who's been around for about 50 years. What is the other solution that we've been working on? There's actually a local bar and grill. We're actually creating some solutions for the local solutions. And one of our piece there, can the military use it for recruiting? Interesting. We hadn't thought about it. I could see why that would be very relevant. Sure. I mean, when it comes right down to it, connecting to data and making it available to people, absolutely, we can do that.
You mentioned one of the last JIFX, but curious about updates since then. Who are you collaborating with?
Well, Integron is another one that we started collaborating with. And Integron actually works with a number of major companies around the world, but they're kind of using a hybrid of our system right now. Actually, since the last, that's a great question for me as I remember, since the last JIFX, one of the things that we recognized as we left JIFX last time, we were very kind of server-centric in our the way that we delivered things. So since the last JIFX, we've pretty much gone to a major JavaScript client-side situation. So not that that's a complete answer to your question, but it could conceivably be. But military recruiting, interesting. Possibly.
Is there a specific thought behind that?
Yeah, is there a specific question behind the military recruiting? Maybe we could address that a little bit better. I'm not quite sure. I don't feel like I'm answering it very well.
1 second. We're getting another question, I think. How do you find all the individual Joe Dents?
Okay, Fixel being their own company, the question was, how do you find all the individual Joe Dents? Fixel being its own entity actually is doing their own marketing to reach out to all the paint and dent repair markets. They've got their own database, and in fact they are currently working with a couple insurance companies that understand there's about 35% of the transaction that goes to people who simply act as brokers and intermediaries currently, and the insurance companies recognize that there is the ability to significantly reduce the cost and actually pay more out to the PDR guys and then they actually save money. So in some ways I believe that they're going to work with the insurance companies to help get that done. Let me kind of elaborate on that question though, because our whole solution is social by nature, and one of the reasons that beyond the Joe Dents, just the mom and pops, if you will, we actually have a solution called Take One, and Take One is actually about, it has a promise. Take One is to make a difference in your life, and it speaks to setting goals, creating plans, but actually looking at the habits. We teach around neuroplasticity and starting to help people change the way they think, change the habits in their lives so they can get different results. All of the outreach, if you will, socially for us is geared toward the credit unions who currently occupy about 7% of the financial space in America, but reach millions and millions of Americans, and we're using that as an outreach beyond. So along just the PDRs, we actually have a plan to reach out socially in many directions.
All right, so the comment was looking for people that need a job or are interested in the military based upon people's profiles, then link those who might appear to be interested up to a recruiter.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. And obviously the data sharing and really for us, just so you know, we are very much firm believers of putting the data in control of the client. Now the client, if you will, is a client side. What that could mean is the individual, it could mean the organization, it could be the company. So what they choose to share is what we would base that on. We do not want to get into, in our world, harvesting of that data without the permission of the individual. That's just something we very much believe that people should control their data in the same way or governments want to be very aware of it. We think that the client should have the same. So the question is fantastic. That starts to speak more toward how we'd go about it. If they express interest, if they're looking at information, then they're free and willing for us to share it. Yes, we absolutely could.
Nothing yet.
Okay.
Any other? Yeah.
Sounds like maybe no other questions. Any more questions out there? We'll hold on a couple more seconds just to make sure that the delay is there. We're getting a little bit quieter.
Oh, something coming in.
All right.
Can you please elaborate more on the child slavery and efforts to stop it?
Yeah. That is a goal that we set for ourselves before we even necessarily understood where we were going and what we were doing. It was what we see as one of the greatest evils that exist. And from our understanding with a couple of organizations that we've spoke to, one of the major causes behind that is poverty. We are currently working in a couple directions. As I mentioned, we work with credit unions and we work with charities. We actually create a platform, if you will, a means of helping credit unions get loans, which is how they exist. And I love this because they're nonprofit organizations. They actually exist for the good of their members. But one of the things they don't necessarily do so well is to reach out into the community and bring those loans in. So what we've done, and remember I mentioned Take One. Take One's a little bit more than what it is. It's a brand, and we are a marketing and branding company. Take One actually means take 1%. And what that is, if you think of some of the credit cards that give 1% cash back, what we do is we go out and we work with charities and we work with the credit unions and we say, hey, for anybody in our community that we can help acquire their debt and lower their debt and help people get out of debt. Maybe it's through debt refinance. Maybe it's they have a car loan. Maybe they have a house loan. What we actually tell them is if we can get that debt and move it to the nonprofit credit union, will you, credit union organization, give us 1% back? And that's a no-brainer. That's actually an indirect lending resource, and it's a no-brainer for them to give that 1% back. It's a cost of acquisition, and it's cheaper than most of what the marketplace is doing right now. So that 1% goes back toward child sexual slavery in the organizations that we work with. One such organization is Rahema Home. This is our first model. We've been working this model for about 3.5 years in Rochester, New York, without all of our technology. But now that we're finally here at launch, this is our first year of really launching it. One of our first examples is Rahema Home. Rahema Home runs orphanages down in Kenya, and this year we're doing a $10 million campaign with them. The idea being is that we're going to reach out into the community. We're seeking to get $10 million in debt and bring it to the nonprofit credit unions. In doing so, we help the individuals reduce their debt, the families, if you will, reduce the cost of debt and the burden of debt, and we're raising money for Rahema Home. Now, Rahema Home is actually going to be using the $100,000 that comes in from that $10 million to buy a brick-making machine. That brick-making machine is actually putting the kids who are no longer age appropriate, if you will, that's 18 and over in Kenya, to stay in the orphanage, and they are putting them to work with the brick-making machine that we are doing. So we're actually doing economic development over in Kenya through our Take One campaign, which is about economic development here at home. So we're using that money, which is generated here, to begin economic development, to begin targeting poverty in those areas of the world that we know that there are problems. This is our first outreach in a major way this year, and we've already sat down with and introduced the plan to a couple of the major organizations in the country that are going straight at this, one of the major ones being Love 146.
Our friend Dennis asks, could link school databases to recruiters with permissions categories in place?
Say that again?
So he wants to know, could we link school databases to the recruiters with permissions in place?
Absolutely. Yeah, the question was, I think he was going back to the military recruiting thing, is whether or not we could link data back from schools to recruiters, and I believe the answer would be absolutely yes. And our goal in that world, to expand on that a little bit more, would be to have a family level setting, so that the family would sit down and agree what the kids are talking about and what they're thinking about doing before it was just shared. We are a military family. My daughter is currently, no, that is not true. She's no longer in the Army. Thankfully, she actually was awarded a 4-year scholarship. Yes, I'm a bragging dad because of the work that she did. So she'll be going back in as an officer. She's at Campbell University right now. But we are a military family. My wife is a military. So in our family, yeah, it would be a no-brainer to let that information be linked up. But we feel that that is more of a family decision. So that type of data would be something that could be shared as appropriate. And absolutely one of the next markets we intend to go into after a few things kind of get in place is the school market because we have some solutions already planned out for that market.
Okay, another question is, can any individual use Udicci or do they need to be invited?
Right now we're doing it by invite only. We will be opening it up kind of on a broader basis. It's just right now we've chosen to do it by invite. Again, we are in probably beyond beta mode or beyond alpha mode or whatever you want to look at it. We're a little bit more than concept. Obviously, we're already using it to run some of our solutions. But again, we're trying to monitor what's going on with the idea that we're trying to set our entire system free from some of the constraints that it currently has, which may be on some server-side reliances, which is why I was referring to that web RTC situation earlier. So for us right now, we're trying to monitor the growth a little bit more, but it will be this year and probably within the next couple months that we will have to open it up without the invite.
Okay, reading. She's responding. How are you different than Collaborate.org?
I'm not certain that I know enough about Collaborate.org to answer that question. I believe what I've heard is that they're a little bit more focused on the geocaching. I don't know that they're necessarily doing mediation of database. I don't know it well enough to answer that question, unfortunately. It has been brought to our attention, and I think more than anything I would simply say this: if we are offering a similar technology, which may well be, I think the bigger thing for us is for us not to own the technology, for us not to, that too. In many ways, we're trying to make it so that nobody's dependent on us. It's not necessarily an open source yet, but we would like to get it so that people could have it as a client-side component and not reliant on that middleman. Don't know how Collaborate is doing it, not saying that is something that they do. But for us, it's not about trying to make money on the data and owning the data. And again, I don't know, I guess I don't know how to answer that question so well. We may be doing the same thing, except for the fact that we are more focused on, I'll say, the social solutions and actually trying to use the technology for the good of people versus simply for the collaboration aspect. It's just the collaboration aspect is something that we do. We may be right in line together for all I know. I don't know, that would be us not being funded, working out of a basement of a restaurant. So just having fun with that.
No other questions, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And hopefully if you have other questions, you can get a hold of us through Udicci and Lisa, and I know that JIFX has our contact information. So thank you very much. Have a good night.